It is 14 days till the man burns, and today we're talking about common Playa ailments. Burning Man is a very harsh environment, and because of that, it creates its own mysterious ailments that some burners experience. The Playa dust is very alkaline, and that causes a huge number of problems. So I have done longer videos going over many of these problems, which I will link in the description box below, but I thought it would be nice to just have one video that kind of goes over a whole bunch of them, with some tips on, how to avoid them or deal with them. So first up, probably the most commonly known about problem is Playa foot. It's caused by too much exposure to the alkaline Playa dust, specifically on your feet, which basically causes chemical burns, but it can be easily avoided. So bring along some decent boots to keep that Playa dust away from your feet. Change your socks frequently because, they're probably just a bit swampy in those boots. Limit the amount of time that you are wandering around barefoot or in flip-flops or something. A bit of contact with Playa dust is not the end of the world. You just don't want too much of it. And bring along some vinegar or witch hazel so that you can wash all of that Playa dust off your feet. A nice mix of 1 part vinegar to 3 or 4 parts water. Give your feet a bit of a soak and a wash, get all the Playa dust off them, and you should be nice and safe from Playa foot. Playa hands is kind of a combination of the Playa dust. It makes your hands very dry, and just all of the stuff that you are doing with your hands. Set up, tear down, moot sweeping, general adventuring, all of that stuff can take its toll on your hands. So it's a good idea to bring along some work gloves so that when you are doing set up and tear down and stuff, you can pop some gloves on to protect your hands. Wash your hands frequently, so they're not just covered in Playa dust 24/7. Use hand sanitizer. I mean, that's really more just because, pores and stuff. Bit gross. You could bring along some other gloves. You probably don't want work gloves for just generally wearing, but if your hands are suffering, then you will have some gloves to be able to pop on. You will want to moisturize your hands frequently. A lot of people will moisturize them before they go to sleep and put some gloves on so that by the time they wake up, their hands are feeling nice and fresh and lovely again. Cover your cuticles with super glue or liquid bandages or something to protect those, because otherwise they get quite dry and painful as well. And any kinds of nicks, cuts, splinters, hangnails, anything like that, deal with them quickly. Keep the area clean, cover it up with a plaster or liquid bandage or something, stop dust just getting into your wounds. It's a good idea to cut your nails nice and short or get gels or something just so that they are a bit stronger and you don't have to deal with your nails breaking in really painful places. And yeah, hopefully that will keep your hands nice and safe. Next up, Playa lung. Now, Playa lung doesn't normally hit until after you have left Burning Man. But it's basically, again, from that pesky Playa dust. It's got teeny tiny particles in it that can penetrate really deep into your lungs. And for some unlucky people, that can cause a type of pneumonia. If you do end up with Playa lung, then, go and get some medical help, go and see your doctor. Get them to fix you up as soon as possible. But to try and avoid it, bring along a decent dust mask, the highest rated one you can find. So in America that's P100 or N95, and in Europe it's FFP3 or P3. Wear your dust mask, especially in dusty situations, dust storms, moot sweeping. If you're shaking out dusty things, then, wear your dust mask. Try and keep your sleeping area nice and dust free. You don't want to be sleeping in a pile of dust, just breathing it all in. You are not going to feel great when you wake up if that happens. And make sure you bring along, spare filters for your dust masks or spare dust masks, and keep them in a Ziploc bag so they're not sitting around getting dusty while you're not using them. Playa nose is terrible. It's basically where the mucus cells inside your nose dry up and then your nose just gets really painful and uncomfortable. So again, with the dust masks, you want to try and limit the amount of dust that's actually getting into your nose, so wear your dust mask in dusty situations. Bring along nasal sprays or neti pots, something that's going to help you clear out your nose. Blow your nose quite frequently, if you feel there's loads of dust and stuff up there, give your nose a good blow, try and get that dust out of there. The longer it's in there, the more it's going to be drying out your nose. And bring along something to moisturize the inside of your nose with. Some people just use coconut oil or lip balm. You can get specific products that are, for moisturizing your nose. And if you are suffering from Playa nose, if you go to sleep with a scarf tied around your face, then when you're breathing in, you'll be breathing in moist air because, when you breathe out, it's hot and then you're breathing back in that moist air. So it might give you a bit of relief. Dehydration is obviously a big concern when you are heading out to a desert-like environment, and dehydration can spoil your day and other people's. It can just make you really grouchy and not too nice to be around. But obviously, aside from the grouchiness, there are some more dramatic effects of dehydration. Make sure you are drinking plenty of water a lot of the time. If you're doing anything that can dehydrate you, if you're like drinking a lot of alcohol or something, you know, make sure you are drinking lots of water to stave off the dehydration. Bring along some electrolyte stuff, you know, you can get it in drink form or powder form to mix with water, because if you're drinking tons of water to, you know, stave off that dehydration, then you're probably flushing the electrolytes out of your system, so you'll want to be replacing them. And don't overexert yourself, or if you are, be aware of it so that you can be drinking lots of water. You know, Burning Man has like a marathon and stuff. If you're taking part in the marathon, you're probably going to want to account for that with how much water you're drinking. Next up, sunburn, which I feel is like one of the most common Playa problems for a lot of people. So some ways to try and avoid it is, firstly, try and get a bit of a pre-tan before you go to Burning Man. The sun is not going to affect you that much if you kind of build up a bit of a tolerance to it. So start doing some pre-tanning, especially on areas that don't get to see the sun very much if they are going to be exposed at Burning Man. Bring along lots of comfy things that you can cover up in, especially during the hottest hours of the day, especially for any of those like high risk areas that usually burn on you, you know, like the stripe down your nose, or, well, I don't know how you'd cover that, or your shoulders, things like that. Bring some stuff to cover that up. Bring along decent sun protection and make sure that you are reapplying it frequently. You could stay in the shade during the hottest hours of the day, especially if you didn't bring anything to cover up with. And bring like a nice wide brimmed hat. That'll protect that stripe down your nose and, you know, the back of your neck and your face and stuff. If you do end up getting burnt, you are going to really appreciate those cover-up clothes you bought, because, you know, you're probably not going to want to spend your whole time hiding in the shade, and if you've got cover-up stuff, you can still have adventures without, you know, exposing that skin to more sun. STDs are like this sneaky secret little ailment of the Playa. If you happen to meet a lovely dusty burner and you want to get intimate with them, you know, bear in mind, STDs are a thing. No one's leaving their STDs at the gate. So make sure you are taking precautions, you know, use condoms. If you are with multiple partners, you know, be aware of what's going where before it's going somewhere else so that there's no like cross-contamination. And you could always ask the person if they have any STDs that they're aware of and, you know, is there anything you should know about. But bear in mind, there are STDs that are symptomless. Just because someone doesn't think they have an STD, it doesn't mean that they don't have one. So you will still want to take precautions. UTIs and yeast infections, it's down to that Playa dust again. Because it's so alkaline, it can affect the delicate balance of the ecosystem between your legs, which can result in UTIs and yeast infections. Definitely not something that is going to be fun when the only place you have to go to the toilet is in a portaloo. So before Burning Man, you could start trying to like build up your tolerance, you know, cranberry juice, cranberry pills, all of that stuff. It's a good idea to bring along some stuff to treat it so that, you know, you're not suffering if it does happen to you. For yeast infections, there are over-the-counter medicines, but for UTIs, you know, I don't think there's any over-the-counter stuff for it. You would need to visit a doctor in advance, explain the situation, you know, you're going to Burning Man, it's kind of one of those things that happens to people, and can they give you something like just in case it happens to you? Bring lots of nice, clean, breathable underwear so that, you know, can be some airflow going on down there. It's a good idea to keep all that underwear nice and dust free by popping it in a Ziploc bag and, you know, only opening it to extract a pair. You don't want to be putting on dusty knickers. Keep things nice and clean down there, you know, feminine wipes or baby wipes or whatever kind of wipes. It is best to go for like fragrance free or things that, you know, just aren't going to be like irritating down there. And make sure you pee whenever you need to, especially if you have been fooling around with someone, you know, go and pee afterwards, because that's another kind of common cause of UTIs is not peeing afterwards. So I hope this was helpful, guys. If any of the rest of you have any like tips or tricks, or you know of any other common Playa ailments, then let us know in the comments below. And if you see me at Burning Man this year, feel free to come and say hi to me. Bye, guys.